Hello and welcome to the Joe Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Ligato, and today we're going to be talking about how the Taiwanese do not find the United States to be particularly trustworthy, but they do feel like the United States security commitment is solid. So I would beg to differ on that latter part, but we will get into that while reading this article and providing commentary. So it starts off with most Taiwanese do not view the U.S. as trustworthy, but majority believe in its security commitment. And this is on the South China Morning Post. A majority of Taiwanese do not. Oh, it just says the same thing 3 times. It has a title, subtitle, and then the first paragraph literally just say the exact same thing. Okay, we can skip that then. The annual survey by the Institute of European and American Studies at Academia Sinica in Taipei found that only 34% of those polled agreed that the U.S. is trustworthy. Okay, so a little over a third, holding steady from last year when the figure fell to 34% from 43.4% in 2021. Okay, so that's a major drop, a 9% drop. And I wonder what happened that would cause them. I mean, probably, yeah, I would say the Ukraine war, probably. So it was higher in 2021 than the Ukraine war happened in 2022. And so people lost faith that the United States would do things in order to help other countries, its proxies. And that makes complete sense. I'm frankly surprised that it wasn't a larger drop. Yet as Americans, okay, so the article goes on to say, yet as Americans' credibility remained stable, more than 50% did not deem the U.S. trustworthy in the survey of 1,211 Taiwanese adults conducted in September, although China fared significantly worse. Okay, so first of all, that is a decently large survey. If it is a random sample, that can be a legitimate source of inference for the population as a whole of Taiwan. We suspect that the drop may have come from the occurrence of the Ukraine war and how the United States government responded. Okay, so they agree with me about what happened to cause that drop. Said Hinsen Pan, a member of the survey team at Taipei's Soochow University, at an event on Monday hosted by the Stimson Center, a Washington-based think tank. Washington's handling of Russia's invasion of Ukraine indicated to many Taiwanese how the United States might respond if Beijing were to engage in an armed conflict with the island, Pan added. However, unlike the mixed views about the U.S., perceptions of China were decidedly dismal. A mere 9.3% of those surveyed agreed that the Asian giant is trustworthy, slightly lower than last year's 9.4% and 13.5% in 2021. Okay, so 9.4% is within what I would assume is the margin of error. 13.5% may still be within the margin of error, but I doubt it. And so 13.5%, what happened since then? Well, I would say the propaganda war against China ramped up. And so it seems like some people were persuaded to be hostile towards China. China just wants to reunite with Taiwan, which is a legitimate thing to want after a civil war that never reached a true resolution in the decades upon decades that the civil war happened between the nationalist, however you pronounce it, Kuomintang, and the Communist Party of China, the CPC. So they want a resolution to that with the reunification with the Taiwanese province. So the article goes on to say China considers Taiwan a self-ruled island, a renegade province that is to be reunited with the mainland by force if necessary. Again, that's the policy of the United States and nearly the entirety of the international community as well. There is a one China policy. While Washington does not recognize Taiwan as an independent country and espouses a one China policy, it is legally bound to provide Taiwan with arms of a defensive character and to maintain the capacity of the United States to resist any resort to force or other forms of coercion according to the Taiwan Relations Act of 1979. Since taking office in 2021, U.S. President Joe Biden has several times stated the U.S. would intervene militarily should China use force against Taiwan. In recent years, Taiwan has become a flashpoint between the two global powers over increased American arms sales and high-level engagement between Washington and Taipei. A weekly curated roundup of social, political, and economic stories from China and how they impact the world skip that. In the survey, more than 65% of respondents expressed support for American arms sales to Taiwan, and about 57% believe the U.S. would use force to help Taiwan if Beijing tried to change the status quo unilaterally. Okay, what do I think of this? Would the United States use force? I okay. My initial thought is yes, because this is different than the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Because when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the United States does not feel threatened to buy Russia because of various problems that Russia has at home. It feels that the United States is just in a better situation. Like if China didn't exist, Russia just would not be capable of resisting the United States. And I think that's a pretty fair assessment, even if Russia does have a great manufacturing capacity, has a great military. There's a lot of just intrinsic problems to the hand that Russia was dealt in modern times that would make it not particularly competitive if China wasn't in the equation. Now, China, on the other hand, it is a severe threat to the United States. And so while the United States wouldn't go all the way towards, or hasn't gone all the way towards a direct military conflict with Russia, I do think they would intervene directly to go to war with China. In fact, they're looking for any excuse to do so because time is on China's side. It's not on America's side. America is in terminal decline right now, and China is very clearly ascendant. And so, yeah, I would say I'm willing to be persuaded otherwise, but I do think the United States would use military force against China if China did reunify with Taiwan. In fact, they've talked about it numerous times. Military generals have talked about it. They've wargamed about it. It seems like that's what the United States wants above all else is war with China. Okay, so the article goes on to say, what struck me most is the gap between the U.S.'s overall credibility and also the credibility of the U.S. security commitment to Taiwan. Obviously, more people are willing to assign more credibility to the U.S. security commitment to Taiwan than find that the U.S. is credible overall, she added. So I think their rationale here is that they think America is untrustworthy, but America benefits from an independent Taiwan, so America would do something that would benefit itself in this instance. And so that's why their trust in the security commitment is higher than their trust in America overall. But that should be concerning to you if your ally is so untrustworthy that you don't trust them in most circumstances. So the article goes on to say, on the question of whether Taiwan and China belong to the same country, about 78% of those polled said they do not. Wow. That's really unfortunate that the American propaganda has gone to this point because they self-evidently do belong to the same country. Among Kuomintang party members or supporters who favor closer ties with Beijing, more than 50% said Taiwan and China are not part of the same country, noted James Lee, another survey researcher affiliated with Academia Sinica in Taipei. This highlights the fact that it's important to not just look at what the Kuomintang says as a party. It seems like what the Kuomintang says as a party may not be fully in sync with what its support base is. So we see that all the time in Western democracies where the leaders of the party do not agree with what their own constituents think. So that's not particularly surprising in a democratic country like Taiwan. So it's sad because I certainly think that Taiwan would be better off with China than with the United States. I mean, just do a scenario simulation here for a second. Like, if you're on the side of America, you're going to inevitably come into conflict with mainland China. And you're going to be the battleground. Why would you ever do that, Taiwan? Like, why not just reunify with them? There's a ton of different groups within mainland China that have a high degree of autonomy, and they're allowed to do that as long as they don't act as subversive elements that support the American interests. And so, like, it's sad the direction that Taiwan's going in. So anyways, let's go on with the article. In contrast with the KMT, or the Nationalist Party of China, the ruling Democratic Progressive Party has leaned towards the establishment of an independent Taiwan. The DPP's 2024 presidential candidate, William Lai Ching-te, is the frontrunner for the election, serves as Taiwan's vice president. Lai, on Monday, announced his selection of Sao Bi-kim, the island's former de facto envoy to the U.S., as his running mate. Okay, so yeah, Taiwan is completely controlled by the United States, and it's going to be very unfortunate for the Taiwanese people in the long term. Taiwan's presidential election, scheduled for January 13th, is expected to focus on local health and welfare issues, as well as the relationship with Beijing and the island's sovereignty. The election could prove especially consequential as regional tensions mount, China's military posture expands, and the number of Chinese military sorties around the island increase, according to a report by the Asia Society Policy Institute. With geopolitical tensions on the rise, this electoral contest could mark a turning point for the island, said Simona Grano, the report's author. The winning party will determine the trajectory of future relations between China, Taiwan, and the United States. Yeah, we're seeing that the elections over the next few years are going to be very important for the direction of the world and humanity going forward for at least decades. I really think that the presidential election in 2024 in the United States is going to be extremely consequential as well. So we'll just have to keep track of that and see what happens in that regard, and also in regards to Taiwan here. Okay, so the article goes on. Shifting political alliances have made predicting the election outcome difficult. Lai of the DPP has led in polling for much of this year against his main opponent of the KMT party. A week ago, the KMT agreed to form a joint ticket with the Taiwan People's Party. A former Taipei mayor is in charge of, hoping to overcome the DPP's strength, but infighting over who would lead a KMT-TPP ticket led to a breakdown in talks. And with Foxconn founder billionaire Terry Gao also seeking the presidency as an independent, the picture is further complicated. So these other parties are splitting the vote against the DPP. All these other parties would be better for China to be in power, but because they're all running at the same time, they're splitting the vote amongst themselves, which puts the DPP in a better position. In the past, Beijing has sought to intimidate Taiwanese voters into casting ballots for the KMT with verbal threats and the military exercise, but these tactics have often backfired and handed victory to the DPP. The PRC seems to have learned its lesson. Rather than trying to instill fear in the Taiwanese people, it is pursuing a two-pronged approach. According to the report titled 2024 Taiwanese Elections, a Primer, these entail a stick-and-carry approach to say combining semi-official gray zone intimidation tactics such as cyber attacks with the prospect of closer Taiwan-China economic integration in the future. As the election approaches, Beijing will try to deepen Taiwan's political divisions by portraying the DPP as incompetent. The report predicted. Okay, so there's a lot of evidence to support that, considering the fact that they're going to get Taiwan involved in as a battleground in World War III at this point. So, and if the DPP win appears inevitable, Beijing will escalate its rhetoric on the risk of war. The report said, hoping to push Taiwanese voters to back the more China-friendly KMT. On Sunday, Taipei reported renewed Chinese military activity around the island as 9 military aircraft crossed the Taiwan and Straits, sensitive median line, and the warship carried out combat readiness patrols. The conflict with China has reached a new dimension, said Grano, and given the current geopolitical situation, especially amid the Russian invasion of Ukraine, these elections will be closely monitored at the international level. Okay, so disappointing. The numbers are not as in favor for mainland China as I would hope for, because I just don't see any benefit for being on the side of the United States. Who benefits at this point? I mean, look at how Japan suffered because of the Plaza Accord. Look at how Germany suffered because of the attacks on their energy infrastructure by the United States, which we suspect, and I mean, all available evidence seems to point to. Look at how Ukraine suffered from supporting the United States. I mean, there are so many instances where countries support and act as proxies for the United States. And in all instances within the past few decades, they've just not benefited from being proxies of the United States. And so why? Why would the Taiwanese people want to be proxies for the United States? It boggles the mind. It's obviously just very successful propaganda. The United States has a ton of experience in the social and behavioral sciences. They know how to persuade people. And so it's just unfortunate. But anyways, if you found this video to be helpful, please give us a thumbs up. It helps us in the algorithm. Please subscribe to our channel on YouTube and Rumble. Please tell a friend about our videos if you think it could help open their eyes to new perspectives on geopolitics, psychology, international relations, social behavioral sciences, science and technology, whatever topic we tend to go over here on this channel. Please tell a friend if you think this could be of interest to them. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, critiques, please leave that in the comment box below. I do read all of them, and I do try to respond when it seems necessary. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.